Against one of the better teams in the conference on defense, Dillon Gabriel is going to have to be better. And can the Oklahoma Sooners find a little bit more running room? We'll talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. My name is John Williams. Yes, it's still me, John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. This is my buddy here, Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. The show is at Locked On Sooners. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all platforms. And Josh, we're going to start with the quarterback position as we get ready for Iowa State. Dillon Gabriel has been really good this season, but the performance against Cincinnati has kind of left a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth, and rightfully so. I'm not going to diminish the mistakes, the miscues, that fumble inside the 10. You can't have some of those things from your quarterback and a guy who's a 5-year veteran of college football. Some of those things need to be gimmies for him at this point. Going up against a defense as good as Iowa State's, you need Dillon Gabriel to be on point this week.
No, they do. Well, first off, let me just say I like the haircut. It looks very nice, my friend. Looking very sharp. You've cleaned up nicely.
Well, thank you.
Dillon Gabriel, obviously, he's got to take care of the football, though. I almost put a little bit of that on Jeff Lebby just because, if you're not running Gabriel to the boundary, I know that he's got to take care of the football and all of that, but Gabriel's not a 6'3", 6'5" quarterback that weighs 235 pounds. So, he's not a running back playing quarterback. So I get it. He's got to take care of the football, but a designed quarterback read is not necessarily conducive to Dillon Gabriel at times taking care of the football. So, not to totally excuse away a fumble, but I almost kind of put that more on the play call than I do Dillon Gabriel. With other quarterbacks, maybe you wouldn't do that, but again, that's not lack of awareness and somebody's coming downhill on a pass rush and you forget to protect the football. So I almost give him a little bit of grace on that fumble, but the other one, right, where you're pressured a little bit and all of a sudden you try and toss it to the side for a running back and it turns into a backwards pass. That one, to me, is the one that, is concerning for Oklahoma. The missed throw to Farouk. Okay, we can talk about maybe he was a little bit gassed or this or that. I don't know. I'm a little bit more up in the air on, was it Farouk being gassed or was it just a Gabriel miss? And again, there's kind of a track record there that at times Dillon Gabriel is not as accurate as you'd like Dillon Gabriel to be. So feel however you want to feel about the one Jalil Farouk play. There's some inaccuracies at times that have kind of plagued this stay for Dillon Gabriel in his time at Oklahoma. So I like the fact, though, that this week, John, Dillon Gabriel is the first guy to come out and say, hey, look, individually, I got to be better. Offensively, we've got to be better. There's some places that he knows that individually he's got to clean up, and Oklahoma collectively needs to clean up. Am I super, super alarmed coming out of last week? No, I don't think that I am, John, because it's not shocking that some of those things would happen in the first game versus the best defense Oklahoma has seen. Now, having said that, okay, let's see some of that get cleaned up again versus what I think is the second best defense, maybe the best defense that Oklahoma has seen to this point. Definitely in that top two, Cincinnati, Iowa State. So let's see some growth, right?
Exactly. That throw to Jalil Farouk, it just reminds me of being on the golf course and you hit the ball, and as soon as it leaves your club, you're putting your head down and grabbing your tee because you just shanked it into the woods, and you're looking around to see if anybody's going to let you put another one down, because that's a throw he absolutely wanted to have back immediately after he let it go. I guarantee it. And he's going to be better. The question is going to be, because Iowa State is such a good defense and they're going to be a team that requires you to be patient, is he going to be able to be patient enough against a defense that's likely going to drop guys into coverage and make them beat them one play at a time and not give up a lot of big plays. Looking just a little stat look here. Iowa State allows the 4th lowest completion percentage in the country at 49.6%. Now, they've only played Alan Bowman and Cade McNamara at Iowa and whoever else at quarterback. They haven't necessarily played the best of the best at quarterback this season, but they've taken care of business against who they've played. Dillon Gabriel has been a fantastically accurate quarterback this season, so something's going to give on that front. Will he complete the 78% that he's averaging right now in completion percentage? Probably not. Will he be 68% or better? The biggest key here is just when you're given a layup, when the play call gives you a layup like you've had, you got to get it. You got to hit it. You can't clang it off the rim and watch it go back the other way. You've got to hit those layups when they're presented to you. I mean, that throw to Jalil Farouk, it was a wide open layup with the defense way back down the court, and you're all alone by yourself. That's what that is. I do think he's going to be better. One, you're in a home environment, so you're not going to have to deal with the crowd noise. That's going to help you and your offense just be in better sync, which they were not in great coordination. Multiple times, whether it was the snap that went off his shoulder because of a miscommunication as to the timing, or a miscommunication on the play call where Gavin Freeman, went in motion and then was supposed to motion back, and Dillon Gabriel tried to fake the handoff to air and then threw it to somebody else. There was just nothing was really in sync that day. And so I think Gabriel is going to be better. I think the offense is going to be better, especially in the passing game. And I think even in the run game, which, that's going to have to be an area that Oklahoma continues to get better in.
Well, it would obviously help Dillon Gabriel if they could alleviate a little bit of the pressure and get this run game to a point that Oklahoma fans want to see it at, whether that's Marcus Major as your lead back, if that's Tawi Walker as your lead back. If the musical chairs continues, I don't think Oklahoma fans necessarily care, right? Whoever's getting the bulk of the carries, as long as there's production behind it, right? I mean, I don't think that there's this emotional pull for it to be, one back over another. It's just that collectively, it hasn't totally come together so far for Oklahoma. And Iowa State, that's going to be not necessarily the easiest opponent to just go crease a bunch of runs against. It's kind of a unique scheme to sort of run against. It lures you into this false sense of security with, 3 up front and then 8 behind it, that you're just going to go find, 10, 12-yard runs at a pop. And it really doesn't typically play out that way versus Iowa State. They're not great, defensively right now against the run, at least statistically. On paper, they're 47th, I believe, in that regard, which, isn't bad, but isn't necessarily elite defensively for Iowa State. And yet we're going to see, right? We're going to see if Oklahoma is going to make some legitimate strides the week before Texas. It would make everybody feel a lot better if, just collectively as a group, Oklahoma finds a way to go settle things down in the run game and run for 175, approach 2 bills versus Iowa State. Again, not saying that that's just something that you easily do versus Iowa State, but man, that'd be a nice sign. And again, for Dillon Gabriel, when we're talking about these pronounced misses that have happened, John, all of a sudden you can move on and forget about some of that if you can occasionally turn to the run game and go get 6 yards. Okay. And then there's another 9 yards. That hasn't really happened consistently for Oklahoma, to where all of a sudden, the Jalil Farouk miss that you have isn't, a drive killer and a points remover for you, or the play in the backfield where you're trying to dump it off, that happens on 1st down instead of on 3rd down, right? Or you name it, right? So the run game clearly has not been good enough. And so that then amplifies some Gabriel misses.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the second half against Cincinnati is just a sign of what's to come, that they were a little bit better than they were in the first, that they've made some adjustments, that they've got some things rolling. Hopefully that carries over to this week. Every game is a little bit different. Every defense is a little bit different, but you hope that they built a little momentum going forward. We'll talk about a few more things that we want to see out of the Oklahoma Sooners this weekend against Iowa State. Later, we'll have our weekly Who You Got segment where we pick some games against the spread from FanDuel. We'll talk about Again, can the Oklahoma Sooners avoid the Cyclone surprise? It's a team that's played OU tough since Matt Campbell took over in Ames. We'll talk about that after the break.
Nutrafol, don't want to miss out on keeping that hair, those lovely locks. You want them to be strong, baby. You want them to look good. Nutrafol, it supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting the root causes of thinning, such as, well, life, but stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. Nutrafol, it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplements. So they've got the hair growth supplements, which are great. I've got some shampoo in our bathroom that I use religiously. It's great. Smells great. So, fortunately the hair growth for me is going okay, but I can definitely speak for the shampoo and the conditioner. It's great stuff. It's tremendous products from Nutrafol. So take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair for a limited time. Nutrafol offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code Locked On College. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code Locked On College.
And thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that notification bell and that subscribe button over on YouTube to let you know when new episodes drop. And Josh, defensively, as we look at the Oklahoma Sooners and they get ready for Iowa State, I feel great about the direction that the defense is headed. And I really feel good about it going into this week. You know, one of the things that has kind of plagued Oklahoma at times is, okay, their defense hasn't been able to hold up, and it's made games a lot closer against Iowa State than maybe they should have been, because Iowa State's offense was able to keep Iowa State's defense was able to keep Oklahoma's offense at bay, keep games closer, and Oklahoma's defense wasn't really able to respond as well. Now they win games, but in the Matt Campbell era, like, they play Oklahoma really, really close. Well, I feel like this year, Oklahoma's got the defense to keep Iowa State's offense down and in check. Now, there are going to be a few things. The pass rush. Okay, Rocco Beck's only been sacked once this year in 4 games. That's really impressive, actually. But I think Oklahoma's pass rush is ascending, and I think we're going to see it take another step forward this week.
I hope so. You're coming off, obviously, last week where Rocco Beck seemingly found his sea legs a little bit, and they found something offensively with the 350 passing yards and his 3 touchdowns. I do kind of feel like, how's this secondary going to hold up, right? I mean, Iowa State does that, and yet, to me, John, if Iowa State can't run the football effectively, which they, really didn't run it for a ton of yardage last week versus Oklahoma State, even in a week where the offense kind of came to life and found some things for Iowa State. So this will seem counterproductive, the point I'm about to make here, but follow me on this. Even though last week Iowa State offensively found something in the passing game when they didn't really run it all that great, John, I don't know if that exists in the same fashion this week at Oklahoma. To me, they're going to have to be able to run the football effectively. Iowa State, if they're going to keep this thing close, they haven't really shown that they can do that versus anybody yet. So Oklahoma has upgraded itself enough in the run defense category. I mean, they just have really, really improved there. So Iowa State's got to show me that they can actually run the football a little bit, because even though at times there's been, looking into the backfield breakdown here, the, out and up route that obviously Oklahoma and Pearson got burnt on a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not sitting here trying to act like there haven't been some coverage bust at times, John, but those, like the 2017 game that Oklahoma loses to Iowa State, you give up the 57-yard touchdown pass. We haven't seen a lot of those from Oklahoma. And then, the in-between, when there's been a coverage bust here or there, it's typically been followed by tightening up of the belt and then forcing a punt, right? Or forcing a field goal. So that hasn't really been necessarily a characteristic that's been there for Oklahoma defensively in the past. So I guess to summarize all of that jumbled mess that I just threw out there, Iowa State to me doesn't run the ball effectively enough, right, to then kind of do what they did in the passing game a week ago, because I don't think Oklahoma's just that susceptible if you're not able to play complementary football.
Yeah, so Oklahoma's only allowing 2.4 yards per carry this season, which is 16th in the nation. They're allowing just 94 yards per game on the ground, which is 27th in the nation. Iowa State's running game is not good. It is 125th in the nation in total rushing yards per game at 82.3, and they're averaging just 2.9 yards per carry. That's not a good formula when you're going on the road and you want to be able to kind of take the crowd out of it a little bit. Relying on your passing game and your redshirt freshman quarterback on the road in a hostile environment like Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, that's not going to bode incredibly well. Now, they might be able to hit a few pass plays here and there, but I just don't think that's going to be a recipe for success. One, their inability to have much success on the ground is going to allow Brent Venables and Oklahoma to kind of play a little bit more conservative. They're not going to have to run blitz. They're not going to have to blitz to stop the run. So they can run, play to stop the run and then rush the passer, if that makes sense. Or they could even just go get after the quarterback. And then if those guys start, to run the ball, then we'll change it up. They can mix things up a little bit better and not have to necessarily rely on sending extra pressure to get to the running back. Now, I think they will. I think they're going to dial up a lot of interesting pressure looks for Rocco Beck just to keep him guessing. But I mean, this kind of plays right into Oklahoma's hands right now. You want to put, Rocco Beck into second and third and long situations. Well, Oklahoma's defense has been really good at that this year, and that's helped him get off the field. Oklahoma's great on third down right now, and that's going to help them a ton in this game against Iowa State.
Not that it just guarantees itself that Beck is going to fold like a house of cards, but really, you look at the start of his career here, John. This is the first big environment. Mm-hmm. This is it. I mean, this is the one, So that, angle here, I kind of like a little bit too, that this isn't exactly an offense outside of, hey, last week, let's just give it a little bit of credit.
Absolutely.
They did start to find some things, it looks like. And yet again, this is Rocco Beck that went to Ohio. It went horribly for this Iowa State team. And now you're talking about coming to Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. So that, that's not a statistical breakdown of this game. And, sometimes can you quantify that, right? It's like some guys, it actually might work to their advantage, might amp them up a little bit, and they go out and they laser focus in and they play better. And other guys, it is a little bit of a factor. I tend to think for somebody that hasn't really been in that environment that it could be advantage Oklahoma.
Since Matt Campbell took over at Iowa State, here are the point differentials. 2016 plus 10 in favor of OU. 2017 -7. Iowa State wins that game. 2018 plus 10. 2019 plus 1. 2020 -7. Iowa State wins again. 2020 plus 6. 2021 plus 7. And 2022 plus 14. So this win last year was the biggest win differential, point differential in a win for the Oklahoma Sooners. So I like that. Like Brent Venables, like, we're done messing around with Iowa State. We're going to win by 2 scores or more. And it doesn't matter who else is on the other side. We're going to beat this team. Whereas Lincoln Riley liked to play things a little bit closer and make things a little bit more interesting and lost twice to Iowa State. So it's going to be fascinating to see. And I think, again, I've said it earlier this week. I've said it multiple times. The best thing that could have happened for Oklahoma as they look to this game this Saturday was Rocco Beck throwing for 350 and 3 touchdowns and them beating Oklahoma State. There's no way you can overlook them. You can't look past them because of what the quarterback just did and the recent history that you've had against Iowa State. You've got to take them seriously and you got to play them to the best of your ability, because if you're not careful, we could be looking at a game in the fourth quarter that's much closer. We're going to talk more about this game and several other big-time matchups in Week 5 with our weekly Who You Got. We'll do that after the break. But first, we're going to talk to you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP that brings home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, Josh, who you got this week with FanDuel providing the odds? We're going to go through 7 games, including the Oklahoma Sooners taking on Iowa State. But let's start with this one. This is Oregon State playing host to number 10 Utah. Is a -3.5 favorite. The Utah Utes playing great defense, but that offense is looking awfully Iowa Hawkeyes right now.
Yeah, it's not been great, has it? And I like what DJ Uiagalelei is doing with Oregon State. I mean, look, it's not going to set the world on fire, but I think he's in a situation that's comfortable for him. And I don't know that it was ever fully comfortable at Clemson. So no, it's at home. It's coming off a tough loss. Oregon State tried to rally back a week ago. And the Cam Rising factor for me is the biggest factor at play. His inability to go, right? I mean, his lack of availability is the most important thing here. I think that Utah's kind of been skating here a little bit, and I don't think they skate by this week. I do like Oregon State to take care of business at home.
Yeah, Oregon State, I mean, they're a much better offense than what UCLA was able to put on the field with Dante Moore at quarterback this past week. But I think it's a game that stays pretty close because of Utah's defense. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and take Utah plus the 3.5, because I think if Oregon State does win it, it's going to be on like a field goal, and that would give Utah the spread win. Coming up next, we got a very interesting matchup down in the SEC. The LSU Tigers -2.5 are traveling down to Oxford, or up to Oxford, I should say, to take on the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss is coming off of a bummer of a loss to Alabama. LSU's really responded well since their opening week loss to FSU.
Yeah, and looked like maybe Arkansas was going to pull the upset card over LSU last week, but I do think LSU is just the better of these two teams. And if I was going to be positive about Ole Miss, well, they took a lot of that positivity away last week. I would have expected Jackson Dart and company. The talent obviously that Alabama has, but man, it just wasn't very good offensively for Ole Miss a week ago. And to me, that's a program that it's centered around, hey, can they go put up points in a hurry? They didn't do that a week ago. So that's kind of turned me off a little bit to Jackson Dart and what they're doing with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. So I'm going to take LSU to go win on the road.
Yeah, I like LSU minus the points as well. That LSU-Arkansas game, that can get weird sometimes. And so it doesn't surprise me that was a close one. But I think LSU, Jaden Daniels is playing phenomenal right now. And I think they take care of business in Oxford. Up next, another great SEC battle, a very historical rivalry. That's the Georgia Bulldogs going on the road to face Auburn. Georgia is laying 14.5 as the favorite here. The number one team, the defending back-to-back national champion, Georgia Bulldogs. I don't know how you pick against Georgia. I don't care what the spread is. Georgia minus 14.5 that's how I'm leaning, because until somebody either covers that or beats Georgia, I just have a hard time picking against the Dogs.
Yeah, and obviously 27-10 loss that Auburn's coming off of last week to A&M. Even if Georgia, John, right now doesn't have the offense to go cover that spread, I don't know that Auburn has the offense to keep it within that spread against that set of Georgia defense and playmakers. So I just think that Georgia's going to find a way to win this game with relative ease. So I would take Georgia to cover the number.
Another really interesting matchup, especially if this was in May on Memorial Day weekend. Notre Dame is traveling to Duke. The Irish are -5.5 point favorites, visiting the Blue Devils. The Memorial Day reference is in reference to the NCAA lacrosse championship. The Final Four takes place on Memorial Day weekend. This was the championship game. Notre Dame beat Duke. I'm going to think the Blue Devils get a little bit of revenge here. From a loss that they suffered just a few months ago. I like Duke plus the points. I was big on Notre Dame and Sam Hartman. I really felt like they'd found something, and I think they do. I think they're going to have a really competitive team the rest of the way. But I was really surprised that they weren't able to put up more than 14 points on Ohio State. Now, that Ohio State defense is great with a lot of big-time playmakers. I just thought they could have been a little bit better. So give me Duke plus the 5.5. It might be a close game and Notre Dame might win it, but I think it's going to stay a close game. Riley Leonard at Duke is playing really good ball.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in that camp too. I'm going to pick Notre Dame to win the game, but squeaker variety. Yeah, I mean, Ohio State's obviously got all sorts of playmakers and talent, but probably you got to put up more than 14 against anybody, and they had opportunities to go win that game. So a little bit discouraging that Hartman and company didn't do that a week ago. I'll pick them to win because I do think top to bottom they're a little bit more talented. And oh, by the way, now Duke is on their radar, right? Because of what obviously Duke did to Clemson to open the season. So I'm going to take Notre Dame to win, but yeah, I'd probably say by a field goal.
So then let's go to a matchup that's a little bit closer to home. The Kansas Jayhawks traveling down to Austin to take on the Texas Longhorns, a top 5 team. This is a top 20 matchup. Jalen Daniels is playing really good ball. I'm really impressed by what I've seen out of Kansas's defense, especially in that game against BYU. 2 defensive turnovers. Now, will Quinn Ewers turn the ball over? I don't know. But I think they're going to put a little bit more pressure on him than what most people might expect. And I think this game turns into a bit of a shootout. The 16.5 points that Texas is favored by, I think Kansas covers that. I don't know if they'll win the game, but I like the Jayhawks plus the points in this game.
Yeah, I think I do too. It's a tough one for me. It's like
nobody ever feels good picking Kansas.
Well, and obviously, being on the road and everything, though, hey, some folks would say it hadn't worked out too terribly and not too distant past for KU. But I need to, though, I don't disagree with what you said that, hey, I see folks flying downhill and jarring the football loose and it turns into a scoop and score touchdown for Kansas. I need to see that defense a little bit, take the show on the road and show me that they can do that, right? Can go make those types of plays to hold this talented group of Texas skill guys. And obviously Sanders, the tight end, and Ewers is playing good football at the quarterback position. I'm going to take KU to cover the number, but I'm kind of right there on the fence about it. I think KU covers, John, but it sort of feels like Texas had them at further arm's length than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, possible. I mean, it's absolutely possible that KU rolls in and gets blown out because of what happened 2 years ago. Texas isn't going to be sleeping on the Jayhawks, but I just think Jalen Daniels and the offense are playing really good. And I think the defense is playing opportunistic and they're playing with a better edge than what we've seen in years past. So that's just kind of where I lean. Another game that's a little bit close to home here. The Colorado Buffaloes hosting the USC Trojans. USC is a 21.5 point favorite here. And I get that Oregon just blew the doors off the Buffaloes. I don't think anybody expected Colorado to stop Oregon. I just don't think anybody, I think the surprise was how well Oregon was able to stop Colorado's offense. Colorado hasn't stopped anybody really with their defense. But I think Colorado's good enough offensively to take advantage of some of USC's deficiencies. Dylan Edwards is a good player. I'm blanking on the kid's name. Joe Horn Jr. He's a good wide receiver. I mean, they've got some skill talent. I don't know if USC is as good defensively as Oregon. I don't think they are. And because of that, I think Colorado is going to be able to cover this spread. Even if USC wins, they're not winning by 21.5, in my opinion.
Well, and obviously you get to play in the friendly confines, which is, get that in Boulder, and it's got what is a 9 a.m. start for the body clock for USC. Okay. So, I mean, that's challenging, right? I mean, we'll see how challenging it is. Maybe we're making more of that than should be. I just got some serious concerns about the way that Colorado can protect Shedeur Sanders. I'm like you. I like Weaver. I like Horn. So I do think they've got some nice skill guys. And I'm not crazy about USC defensively still. But that Colorado defense, man, I mean, Oregon could have named their score a week ago with Caleb Williams running the show. I think it'll be more of the same. I do think USC is covering the number, but I think USC is going to give up points too. So I'm thinking, what is the over-under number at?
Oh, I got rid of the let me see if I can find it again, but it was pretty high.
Well, suffice it to say, I think that whatever the number may be at, I think that it's going to be right there at it and probably going over.
The over-under for this one was 73.5.
Yeah, 73.5. Gosh, that's a lot of points, man. That's a lot of points. I'd have to think about that. But I do think USC in the 40s and Colorado in the 20s, maybe 49-24. I guess that would be just barely a cover, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which, I mean, that's very much within reason there. Caleb Williams is playing great. You got to tip your hat, to the guy. He's playing fantastic football. I feel like he's the Heisman front runner. If history doesn't repeat itself, he should win the Heisman Trophy this year, in my opinion, because he's the best player in college football. But that Colorado offense is pretty good when they're rolling. So that'll be a fantastic one. Now, this brings us to the game of the week here on Locked On Sooners, and that's the Oklahoma Sooners hosting the Iowa State Cyclones. Oklahoma is a 19.5-point favorite over at FanDuel. I like the Sooners to cover. I'm sorry. I just don't fully believe in Iowa State offensively yet. I don't they put up good numbers against Oklahoma State, but they can't run the ball. And I just don't trust that Rocco Beck's going to be able to go into Norman and throw for 350 and 3 touchdowns to keep them in this game.
Yeah, I really look for Oklahoma to have another great defensive day. And, I'll give 13 courtesy points to Iowa State, and I almost want to give them less than that with the way that OU's playing defense and, obviously the struggles outside of last week for Iowa State offensively. So I expect Oklahoma to force multiple turnovers off Rocco Beck. I don't think that Iowa State will be able to run the football all that effectively. And I'm hopeful that OU is going to be able to do that better than they've done so far this season. Be patient, as we discussed with Dillon Gabriel, not try to just go for a bunch of home runs because this defense, they want you to try to do that. And then hopefully, again, the run game picks up a little bit. So I'm thinking 37-13 and, relatively comfortable victory. And I might have not given Oklahoma enough points in this game, John.
Yeah, it's one of those that, I mean, yes, Oklahoma may just barely get out of the 30s, but I just don't expect Iowa State to get to 2 touchdowns or more. I just don't. Oklahoma's defense is playing too good right now to sleep on. And that's kind of what it comes down to it for me. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Again, we're free and available on every platform. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. Follow myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners and Locked On Sooners podcast on Facebook. We'll be back for more coverage following the game. Can't wait to see how Oklahoma beats Iowa State. Hopefully this is the run game breakout for the Sooners. But until next time, he's Josh Helmer. I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.